Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to go ahead and build an AI weather agent. Basically, an AI weather agent that can tell us the weather in any part of the world. So for example, we can also customize the language that the AI weather agent speaks, the different attributes like its personality, whether it's childish, it's mature, it's funny, it's charismatic, it's black, white, optimistic, creative, and all that. So basically, you can have basically a weather agent that's gonna act or have a mood in which you desire it to have. So for example, let me just ask what's the current weather in Nairobi. So I'm going to go and ask it what is let me just change a couple of things. So what I want to do, let me change the language to let me keep the language to be Swahili first of all. Let's just leave everything to be default, and then just ask it what is the current weather in Nairobi. So Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya. So if I ask for the current weather in Nairobi, it should get back to me the current weather in Nairobi. So right now Nairobi is kind of a bit cold. It's also a bit rainy. So let's see what it returns. Okay, so it also returns to the result here. Oh, Nairobi, the weather there is always full of surprises. According to my sources, the current weather is this, and yeah, so chance of rain. So as I said, it's raining currently in Nairobi, but now it just stopped raining. So there's a bit 30% chance that it might rain again. So that's basically it. So you can also see the source where you got the data from. We have all the sources from here where you got the data from and all that. Okay, so you can control it to even speak different language. So you can say, let's say for it to speak Swahili, because I understand Swahili, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste it right here, and then ask it again, and let's see what it gets. So it returned to me the answer now in Swahili, which is a language that is spoken in East Africa mainly. Okay, so now I think Swahili is the most popular language in Africa as well. So let's see what it returns back to us. So it's taking a bit of time. So now it returns back to us, hey, habari yako, and you can see it tells us the weather condition in Nairobi in Swahili. So you can also customize this, and let's say that it's childish. Okay, so let's ask it it's childish, and now let's go ahead and try to ask it a question, considering that it's gonna be childish. There in the response, let's see what we get back. Okay, so just give it a bit of time. Yeah, so now that's done. Habari yako, you can see it transfer results back now a bit in childish. So you can also try this in English and then ask it again. You can change the different modes and other stuff like that. So that's basically the app you're going to be building. You're going to be using LangChain, Streamlit for the UI. And you're also going, yeah, basically that's what we're going to use. So we're going to use this library, this DataForSeo. You're also going to use that for the getting the recent weather information. Okay. Okay, so now that's basically what you're going to go ahead and do. So let's get started. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my terminal. So I'm going to stop this right now, exit of the terminal. Okay, now that I have that stopped, I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to go ahead and create a project folder. I'm going to call it, I'm going to be mkdir. I'm going to call it AI weather weather underscore agent. So that's basically, so I'm going to change directory into my AI weather agent. So once I'm in here, you can see right now I have nothing inside of this project directory. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is create a Python virtual environment in here. So I'm going to simply go ahead and do, again, this one is going to work for both Windows, Linux, and MacBooks. Okay, so now that's, once I have that, you can also change directory into the folder that you just created, which is called AI weather agent. Okay, once I'm in there, I'm going to go ahead and simply do ls, which you can see is empty. For Windows, it's going to be dir. Okay, once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and create a Python virtual environment to keep our project dependencies. So I'm going to simply say python 3-m vnv and then vnv, and then press enter. That's going to go ahead and create for me a virtual environment folder, which is going to be called venv. Okay, so if I do else, you can see now I have that they are called venv. So if you're on Windows, it's going to be different. For so you say py and -m venv and then venv. That's how you create a virtual environment on Windows. But this command is going to work for guys who are on Linux and MacBooks. Okay, so once you have the virtual environment created, now we need to activate it. Again, the command is going to be different from MacBooks and MacBook, Linux, and Windows machine. If you're on MacBook and on a Linux machine, you can use this command. You can say source venv/bin/activate. If you're on Windows, is a bit different. And once you run this command, you can see the name of the virtual environment in here. So for Windows, I think you have to say source and then /venv /scripts /activate, just like this. So if you're on Windows, you probably do something like this, right? I'm not clearly sure. You can also do something like this, or I think the source is not there. If you're on Windows, I'm not clearly sure, but something along these lines. You can just try this. If it doesn't work, try to keep the source in front of it. If it doesn't also work, try to keep bat. It's a bat file on Windows. Okay, I haven't done this a bit while in Windows, so I can't remember the whole command, but that's basically how you can create a virtual environment on Windows. To activate your virtual environment on Windows. So once you have this virtual environment activated, Now I'm going to go ahead and install a couple of libraries. As I mentioned, I'm going to be using LangChain mainly. So I'm going to say pip3 install LangChain. I'm also going to install OpenAI. I'm also going to install basically python.env, python-env for reading our environment variables. So once I have this done, I'm just going to go ahead and simply press enter and have all that installed in my virtual environment. Okay. So once we have all that installed, we can go ahead and start coding. But in the meantime, what you need to do, let me just go in here. I'm going to be using this right here. Let me try to see DataForSeo. You can find it on the Python LangChain official documentation, and you can see how to use it right here. You can see documentation, and if you're having any issues, I also have it. I also have code on it on my GitHub page. I'm going to leave the link in the description so you guys can have access to it. Okay. So that's the library we're going to be using. It's called DataForSeo, and you can get that. You can read more about it on the official documentation. Okay. So I'm also going to leave the link to this repository where I made a couple of programs on it. You can find that documentation. I will leave the link to this repository so you guys can have access to it. Okay. So once you have this, you also need to get an open DataForSeo account, and you can just go ahead and search for the app.dataforseo for seo.com, and then simply go ahead and create an account. I'm going to leave the link below where you guys can have access to creating an account and having access to your profile page. Once you do that, you can go back in here and you can see you need to provide in your API access username, which is going to be basically the email that you use to register with, or your username. Depend. I use my email, so I'm going to be using my email as the access username. Again, you can find all this on the official documentation. I can just show you this because I don't want you guys to have access to my API key. You can find it on the dashboard section. Okay, and then you can find your access password. You can also find it on your dashboard section. You can find that as well. So once you have that done, let's go back in here. Good, and we have everything installed that we need. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my VS Code. Feel free to use any editor that you're comfortable using. So once I'm in, I'm going to go ahead and create a file in. I'm going to call this file .env. So don't forget the dot, so it's dot and then env. Okay. So let me just wait for my VS Code to load up. So now we have it loaded up. So I'm going to go ahead and simply copy this right here. Go ahead and equals this, and simply go ahead and paste in your details from the admin dashboard page from DataForSeo. Okay. So make sure you go ahead and paste those details in here. Right, for the login, you paste in the login information, and for the password, you go ahead and paste in the password. Okay. So once you have that, you also need one more thing, which is going to be an OpenAI API key. So you're going to go ahead and simply say we're going to have an OpenAI API. So say OpenAI underscore API underscore key, just like this, and it equals to, and then you go ahead and get an OpenAI API key, and then put it in here. I'm not going to go ahead and show you how to get an OpenAI key. You can just go online and just Google for OpenAI. So just go ahead and say openai.com, and just simply search for that. And in here, you can go ahead and simply create an account or log in. If you have an account already, go under your API keys and retrieve your API key. Okay. I'm going to keep a link to all that in the description, so you guys can have access straight to your dashboard and get your API key. So I'm not going to go ahead and show you how to do that in this video. It's quite straightforward to do. Okay. So yeah, I assume now you have all that already done. So once you have that done, make sure you have, once you get your OpenAI key, make sure you put it in here as well inside of your env file, and now you're good to go. So now let me just go ahead and upload this, upload my keys in here, and then back resume, because I don't want you guys to have access to my keys, so I'm not going to show them to you. Okay, so just give me a second, and then let me upload this, and I'll be back. Okay, so I just uploaded in my virtual environment variable values in there, basically my keys in there. So now let's go ahead and begin to code. So I'm going to go ahead and create a file, and I'm going to call this one app.py. We're going to keep basically our Streamlit interface. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say import Streamlit okay. I also forgot one more thing. We need to install Streamlit. We didn't install Streamlit, so I'm going to go ahead and say pip3 install Streamlit. So my bad for that, I didn't install Streamlit. So make sure you have Streamlit installed, because that's going to help us to build a UI interface. So let's give it a bit of time for Streamlit to get installed. And once Streamlit gets installed, we can just give a bit more time. Okay, now we have that done. So I'm going to go back into my VS Code. We're going to go ahead and say import Streamlit as st, right? And you're going to go ahead and simply do a couple of things. You're going to go ahead and create the chat interface. Okay, I have created this in a couple of videos already, so I'm not going to go ahead and waste a lot of time on it. I'm fairly going to go through it very quickly. So I'm going to say if not messages in st.session underscore session state dot keys, where you're getting all the keys. You're checking if you have messages instead of the keys. If not, you're going to go ahead and say st.session session state dot messages. You're going to create that key messages, and it equals to, now you're going to be a list of messages. Okay, so initially you're going to have a message in here. I'm going to say role, and this is the first message that you see whenever you go onto our Streamlit application. So it's going to be the role is going to be assistant, and then finally it's going to have content, and the content is going to be basically what you want to say. The content is going to say hello there, let's say, how can I help you today? How can I help you today? Something like that, and very exciting. Okay, so that's basically it. So that's basically what you need to do for the Streamlit session. We're going to check if we have messages in our session keys. If not, you're going to create a session key and have it as a list that consists of a dictionary of this format: role, assistant, and a content, the message you're going to display. Okay, so once we have that, now how do we display the message onto the screen? To display the message, you're going to say for message in streamlit.session state dot messages, right? You're going to get all the messages, and what you're going to go ahead and do, display all these messages one at a time. We're going to say we're going to get a context manager. We're going to say with st.chat message, right? st.chat message. You're going to go ahead and see message, and you're going to go ahead and get file. You're going to go ahead and get the role of that message. So we're going to go ahead and get, for each iteration, you're going to go for each iteration of this outer loop, you're going to go ahead and get a message, basically a dictionary like this. Now we're getting the role part of it, and once you have the role part of it, you're going to say st.write. You're going to write the messages content. So messages, and you're going to go ahead and write the content of that message. That's basically it. So now that's what we need to do. So now let's run this up and make sure everything is running. So I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to just make sure I'm in the right directory, and then I'm going to say streamlit run app.py, and then press enter. Okay, so once that's running, it's going to open up in the browser, and let me just close this window so we don't need them for now. So you can see now that hello there, how can I help you today? So good, we have that app running. Okay, so once we have all that running, now we can move on to the section where we're going to take in the user input. Okay, so let me just go back into my VS Code right here, and I'm going to, okay, there's going to be display messages. Let me just comment the code. So display messages, just like that. That's all we need to do to display the messages. And for the user input, you're going to say, I'm going to keep a comment right here. I'm going to say get user input, and I'm going to say user underscore prompt. It's going to be equals to st.chat input underscore input, just like that. You're going to get the user input. You're going to check if the user typed in something. So if user prompt is not none, right? If the user prompt is not none, what you want to do, we're going to say st.session session state dot messages. This is the list. You're going to say dot append. You're going to go ahead and append in a dictionary. Okay, so we're going to have a very similar format like this. So I can even just go in here and copy all this right here. Copy this, paste it right here, and the role is going to be the content is going to be what the user said, basically the user prompt, and then the role is going to be simply user. That's all we want to do. So that's all we want to do. And once we have that done, then now we're going to go ahead now and write the user's prompt onto the screen, because now the user typed in something. We saved it in our session. Now we are going to go ahead and display what the user typed onto the screen. So we're going to go ahead and simply say the role is going to be simply user, and then finally we go down here and simply write in the message and say a streamlit.write. You're going to go ahead and write in the user prompt, just like that. So now let's go back in here and let's say reload, always rerun, and you can see you have it here. So say hello. If I run that, okay, you have an error right there. So let's see what the error is. Okay, because I kept in two dictionaries right here, that's why we're getting that error. Okay, so once I have that, you can go ahead and say hello. Now it works, right? So hello there, it works. Good. Okay, now you get the message. You're displaying the message. Now you're going to go ahead to the part you're going to go ahead and get the prompts. Okay, now let's leave this part alone. We'll come back to this part just in a second. But what I want to do for now is I want to go up here. I want to go up here and I want to create a navigation bar, a sidebar. So you probably saw the sidebar that had the options of the different modes of the bot, right? So and the languages, right? So let's go ahead and implement that. So I'm going to say with a streamlit.sidebar streamlit.sidebar. What I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to say selected. I'm going to have selected underscore language, and selected language is going to be equals the following. So selected language is going to be streamlit.select select box, and you're going to go ahead and call this, okay, this method. And what you're going to go ahead and you're going to pass in a label, and this is going to be select select a language, okay. And then finally, you're going to go ahead and pass in the available language that we have. So I'm going to have a few languages for now, but you can input as many languages as you want. So I'm going to use a tuple, right? I'm going to say English. The reason I'm using a tuple is because everything here is unique, right? So English, French, we can use German, and also Swahili, right? So Swahili, just like that. So now that's all we need to do. So if I go back in here, I should now see we have our side panel right there. Okay, so I have zoomed in a bit, so that's why it looks like that. But if you zoom out, it should look like this. Okay, so I'm just zooming a bit so that you guys can see clearly. So that's basically it. Okay, so once we have that done, now I want to create one more for the different like modes of the user of the bot. So we can call this one traits, and traits is going to be a list of traits. So st.multi select, and this is going to be going to have a label here, and you call the label. You're going to call this label simply select a trait of the bot. So that's basically, or traits of the bot, or basically, yeah, something like that, trait or traits, right? Yeah, so now once there's a label, and you're going to go down here and have a list of traits that the bot can have. So I'm just going to go ahead, just to save on time, I'm going to go ahead and get this from here. Okay, I already have the code written already, so I'm just going to go ahead and get these traits right here. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and then paste it in here. So paste it in there, and you can see we have two lists. This is the first list, and you have another one. So these are the default values. Okay, so these are the default values right here. So you can also say ambitious if you want. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so that's basically it. So now if I go back in here, and now you can see you also have that option right there. So the languages, and then we have now the traits. So I'm just zoom out a bit, so you can see now we have also the traits right there. Okay, so I'm just gonna zoom in a bit just to help you guys to be able to show that this is all well seen. Okay, so now that we have that done, now let's go ahead and build the AI part. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a file. I'm going to call it AI underscore functionality.py, and this AI functionality is what is going to basically have the functionality. We're going to go ahead and use LangChain and be able to prompt the model, get responses, get data information, pass the context, and then the bot is able to get a response. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and bring in all the input that I need. So I'm going to say from LangChain, I'm going to go ahead .prompt. I'm going to go ahead and import chat prompt template, just like that. I'm going to say from LangChain chat models. I'm going to go ahead and import the chat OpenAI model. I'm also going to say from LangChain schemas output parser. I'm going to go ahead and import str output parser. Also going to say from LangChain utils data, this one right here, DataForSeo. I'm going to go ahead and import the following. I'm going to go ahead and import DataForSeo API wrapper, and I'm also going to say from decouple, which is going to help us to read in our virtual environment variables. So from decouple, from decouple, I'm going to go ahead and import config. Okay, also going to say import OS. So it looks like decouple has an issue with decouple. So let's go ahead and try to install it again. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this with the terminal. I'm going to say pip install python-decouple. Okay, so I thought to install this. Okay, so it's installed now. Maybe I typed in the wrong thing. So I'm going to say from decouple import config, just like that. Okay, so once, I hope that gets imported. I don't know, I'm getting the error, but yeah, let's proceed. Okay, now it caught up. So I'm going to go ahead and simply set up a couple of things. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up the data SEO API wrapper, and you can find all the documentation right here. So you need to set up this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and bring it right here, and I'm going to go ahead and paste this. Now these keys are going to be basically config, and then finally passing these keys. These are the keys that you use in our environment variable file right here. So these are the keys that you use in here as well. So if you guys use a different key, make sure that you use the same keys in here. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and move it right here, and then copy this and paste it here as well. Paste. Good. So once I have all that done, I'm going to go ahead and simply create a model. So I'm going to go ahead and simply create a model, and I'm going to say model is going to be equals to the chat OpenAI model. I'm going to go ahead and pass in our open API key. So open API key, and I'm going to go ahead and simply say config, and I'm going to go ahead and pass in my open API key. So open API underscore OpenAI underscore API underscore key, which is the value that I use inside of my environment variable file. Okay, so it's going to go ahead and get me my open API key, which you can get from the official documentation, and we already discussed this all earlier on. Okay, so now that we have this, I'm going to go ahead and generate a bunch of prompts that I want to use. So I'm going to say prompt. Basically, the prompt is going to be what we are prompting the model to be able to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just to save on time, I'm going to go ahead and copy the prompt that I already have on my repository here, so that we save a lot of time. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this prompt right here and paste it here, because I don't want to waste a lot of time typing out all this. So this is the prompt that we're going to be using. So we're going to pass in a trait to tell the bot how to behave, a language to tell the bot in which language it should respond with, or basically interact with. The user question, what the prompt, for example, if I ask what is the current weather in Nairobi, that is the user question. And then the context is you're going to get the context from DataForSeo login. So this is going to provide us, it's going to go ahead and search content on the internet to find out what's the current weather in Nairobi, and that's going to return to us a JSON format, right? In that JSON format, you're going to pass our our context, and the model, the GPT model, is going to use that as use that context to be able to answer the user question, right? Okay, so that's it. So if you go back in here to official document on here, you can find out how to do all that in here. It's all documented in here. Okay, so good. So now I'm going to go ahead and let's see what else we need to do. So we have the prompt, you have the model, and you also have the output pass. So I'm going to use basically it's called LangChain expression language to be able to create a chain. So I'm going to say chain is going to be equals to chain. Okay, so it's going to be equals to, okay, let me get that right. So chain is going to be equals to, you're going to pass in the prompt, you're going to pass the prompt to the model. Once the prompt is formatted, you're going to pass that to the str output format output processor. So make sure you call that, get this, you call this function. Okay, so that's basically it. I think it's a class. Yeah, that's basically it. So okay, so that's all we need to do to create a chain right here. I'm using the LangChain language expression language to create this. So if you haven't seen this syntax before, it exists in the LangChain. If you're using an outdated LangChain, make sure that you have your LangChain updated, because you will get an error if it's behind in terms of the versions. Okay, so I'm going to have one last function, right? I'm going to have def called generate underscore AI underscore response, and this function is going to take a couple of things. So, and it's going to return to us basically a string. Basically it's going to return to us a string at the end of the time. So what we're going to go ahead and do instead of this function right here, we're going to take in a language. A language can be of type a string. We're going to take in the trait, basically the traits of the bot is going to be of type string. Actually going to be a list of traits, right? So list. You're also going to go ahead and take in the user underscore prompt, what the user typed in. So user prompt, and it's going to be of type string as well. So that's basically it, and that's all we need. And you're going to go ahead and simply add in, you can add in some doc strings here. So I'm going to get these doc strings from my GitHub repo. Just to I'm going to use the doc strings that you guys can go back in this and read it all anytime you want, and also keep the code well documented. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there as my doc strings right there. So I have my doc strings in here. So good. So that's it. So once I have in there, I'm going to go ahead and simply save this just to get a bit of formatting in there. Okay, so that's a doc string. You're taking the user prompts, basically a string of the user inputs, the traits, a list of the traits the bot should uphold, and then you're taking the params. Okay, these are not params, actually it's called a language. Okay, sorry, it's actually a param there. So actually, let me just customize this a bit. So I'm going to say parameter. My doc string is a bit wrong over there. So parameter is going to be just like this, and this is going to be parameter. So param, and this, and also this is going to be a parameter. Okay, so that's it. And then you're going to, at the end of the time, you're going to return a dictionary of the context and a string of what was said. That's basically it. So now this is the code that we need for it. So I can simply just copy this code, but let me just type it out so you guys can see how it works. So I'm going to have a try and except block here. So try, I'm going to use pass, and then I'm going to say except exception as e. I'm going to go ahead and simply pass in here, or you can print this exception if you want. So what I'm going to go ahead and do in here, I'm going to go ahead and start writing. Basically, we want to use the DataForSeo to get the latest weather information based on what the user asked. Like if the user asks what's the current weather in Nairobi, it should get us the weather updates from Nairobi, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and simply say JSON underscore. This is going to be a JSON object. So I'm going to call JSON wrapper, just like they called it in the docs. And I'm going to simply say data this, and I'm going to go ahead and create an instance of it. I'm going to say top number of top counts that we want. Let's say I want 1 and 3 responses back. I also want the JSON fields, and for the JSON fields, I'm going to have title. I want to go ahead and have description. I'm also going to go ahead and have type. I'm also going to go ahead and have text, just like that. And I'm also going to pass in the JSON underscore result types, and the result types that I want organic. Okay, you can read all about this on the official documentation. I want organic. I want local underscore pack, just like that. So local pack as well. So that's all I want, and that's all we need for this to work. So once we have this in place, we can go ahead. Let me just move this up here, and then yeah, so good. So once we have this in place, we can go ahead and simply say context. It's going to turn to us a dictionary because it's going to be JSON, right? We can say JSON wrapper dot and say results, and then pass in the question that the user asks, which is going to be the user underscore prompt is what we pass in here, right? The user prompt, you're going to pass it in here. Okay, so if the user asks what's the current weather in Nairobi, it's going to go ahead and create this from the internet and then return to us as in form of a JSON, okay, or a dictionary in Python. So once we have it, I'm going to go ahead and generate a response, and the response, I'm going to say response, and the response is going to be equals to chain.invoke. Now we created a chain up here. You're going to go you have the chain up here. So basically you're just invoking this chain that we have up here. Okay, so now in here you're going to go ahead and pass in a dictionary. Okay, so what are going to be the keys of this dictionary? Well, the keys of this dictionary are going to be the variable names. Okay, so input variable. So basically we're going to have one for trait. So sorry, my bad. So I'm going to copy that and move it in here. I'm going to say trait, and the trait is going to be a list of traits. So I'm going to say traits that we pass in from the user, right, which this function takes in, traits right here. Okay, so now we have this actually called traits from here, right? Traits, so traits, right? Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and pass in now the language. Copy that, and I'm going to go ahead and create a string of language, and it's going to be the language that we pass into this function whenever this function is called. So language, just like that. And also we're going to go ahead and pass in let me see what else we need. We also need the human, where basically the question is going to be the user prompt. So pass in the question right here, and it's going to be equals to the user prompt that gets passed into this function whenever it's being called. Okay, user prompt is this what we get passed in here. And then finally we need also the context, which is going to be the latest data information, basically weather information about whatever the user asked. Okay, so we're going to pass in the latest weather information of the location in which the user requested the weather information about. We're going to go ahead and pass in this as a context, right? Remember we have context right here. So context is what we're passing it in right there. Okay, so good, that's all we need to do. And then once we have that, I'm going to go ahead and return a couple of things back to the caller. So I'm going to go ahead and return response. Also going to go ahead and return the context, just like that. Okay, good. So once you have that, I'm going to go ahead and save this, get a bit of formatting, and I'm going back into my app here, and I'm going to go ahead and import it. So I'm going to say from, I call this from I think I called it from AI function, right? Yeah, from AI function, I'm going to go ahead and import the generate AI response function. So I'm going to go in here and say from AI functionality, I'm going to go ahead and import generate AI response. Good. So once we have that right there, I'm going to go ahead and use it at the bottom right here. So what you're going to go ahead and do, we're going to check if streamlit.session underscore state is session state dot messages, right? You're going to get the messages. You're going to get the very last dictionary from that message. You're going to get the role of it, or the role of it. You're going to go ahead and check if the role is not equals to the assistant. If the role is not equals to assistant, what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to go ahead and display some message onto the screen. You're going to say with streamlit.chat underscore messages, chat message. You're going to pass in the role as assistant. Let me get that spelling right, assistant. And you're going to, what you're going to go ahead and do, you're going to have also have another context manager in here. I'm going to say st dot basically the spinner. You're going to display a spinner because it can take a bit of time to load and display the data, or basically the AI response. So you're going to create a spinner in there. You're going to give it a name called loading, just like that. Okay, loading. Okay, so that's it. And then inside of this context manager, what we're going to do, we're going to get the AI response. So we're going to say AI underscore response. Response is going to be equals to basically you're getting AI response and the context, right? Because this function, you're going to call this function, and it's going to return to us the AI response and the context, right? So I'm going to say AI response comma context is going to be equals to generate AI response. You need to pass in a couple of things. So you're passing language is going to be equals to the language, selected language. We're going to go ahead and pass in the trait. It's going to be equals to the traits, and you're going to pass in the user prompt, and it's going to be equals to the user prompt. Okay, so that's all we need to do. So user prompt, this one right here, the traits, which are this one right here, and then finally we pass in the selected language, which is the language that the user selected. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pass in all that, and once we have all that passed in, what we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to go ahead and write the response out. We're going to say streamlit.write, and you're going to go ahead and say AI underscore response. You're going to write the AI response onto the screen, and then finally what you can also go ahead and do, you could say s3.write, and I'm going to write the context onto the screen so the user can know where the information came from, right? So once you have that in place, what you're going to go ahead and do is say new underscore AI underscore response is going to be equals to a dictionary, and a dictionary is going to be this format. So I'm going to copy this right here and then paste it right here. Okay, so the role is going to be user, the content, so the role is going to be user, the content is going to be, okay, actually the role is supposed to be assistant, right? Assistant, and the content will be the user, basically the AI response underscore response right there. Okay, so once we have that there, I'm going to go ahead and simply say s3.session state.messages. Messages is going to be a list, so I will say .append, right? Append, you're going to go ahead and append the new underscore AI response in there. So once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and hit save on that one, and that's all we need to do. So that's all we need to do to have the app running. So now let's go ahead and run the app and make sure everything works. So say streamlit run app.py. Okay, run that, and if you don't have any errors, now that should start running. And or you can open up this, you can copy the link from here and then open it in a browser if you want to. And let's go ahead and simply say what is current weather in Nairobi. Let's see what we get back. So ask us the current weather in Nairobi, and let's see the response we get back. So it's going to take a bit of time, get the latest data, weather information about Nairobi from online, which is this information that we get back, and then pass this as the context to the AI model and be able to generate a response where the character is going to be funny and charismatic, and the response is going to be in English, so you can get the response there. So you can change this to any language you want, German, and then you can ask it again the question. I don't speak German, but for the guys who are watching and you speak German, you can let us know if the bot is correct or wrong. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So you can see the weather information from Nairobi. So you can see we have this in German right there. I don't know if that's German. Okay, so if you guys speak German, let us know what you think, if this is really German. Okay, so that's basically the weather information, and the AI is generating its responses based on this context right, which is actually real-time data, weather information about Nairobi that is gathered using the data SEO. Basically, let me guess, the data is called data SEO, DataForSeo API wrapper, which you're using to get the information. and then we're passing the information as a context to AI, and then the AI is able to generate a response. So you can play around with this. You can change the different characters and see how it behaves, right? News reporter, and let's say you want the response in English, and let me ask it what's the current weather in Nairobi again, and let's see the response we get back. So sometimes it can take a bit of time because it has to get the real-time data about Nairobi, okay, or the whatever you're asking about. So hey, Nairobi, the loud, beautiful one, blah, blah, and you can see all that and reprise us with all this information, right? So yeah, it's actually correct. It's actually a bit rainy in Nairobi. It just stopped raining. So that's basically it. Yeah, so that's basically how you can build a simple bot, a weather agent using AI, basically Streamlit and all these other libraries that we use. So that's basically how the application looks like, and that's how it works. So I hope this was helpful for you guys and you learned something out of this video. If you did, make sure that you like the video, you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, to stay updated with latest information on programming, AI, different projects and stuff like that. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. See you in the next one, and keep safe.